Was Prince Harry snubbed by a very famous person? Did Prince William do some snubbing of his own? What are the secrets behind Catherine's return, and has the King been badly misrepresented? We'll answer all those and more in another thrilling episode. Hello and welcome, it's Palace Confidential. I'm Jo Elvin, and this week my panel is the Daily Mail's Royal Editor Rebecca English, the Mail on Sunday's Editor-at-Large Charlotte Griffiths, and the Daily Mail's Richard Eden, back from holiday. Welcome to you all. Now, before we get to it, a reminder, do please like and subscribe. We're approaching that 300,000 subscribers mark, and we kind of want to get there. As I always say, it costs nothing, but guarantees you will see each new episode of the show and other great royal videos. Okay, that's my begging done. Without further ado, let's get to it. And the King and Queen were in the Channel Islands this week. For our viewers abroad, these are a really gorgeous group of islands off the south coast of England, and our Rebecca was there. Rebecca, what I would like to start with, keeping it classy, is the fact that they were upstaged, our King and Queen, by a rather amorous cow.
Yeah, I'm trying to think how
it can only get better from here, Rebecca.
Thanks for throwing me a curveball on the first question. So we were in the Channel Islands, Crown Dependency, big day planned, and there was a thing called Jersey Expo, which they were highlighting all the best of Jersey's agriculture and aquaculture. And there was a pen of 7 Jersey cows.
I think we're showing the viewers that clip now, so yeah.
7 Jersey heifers. Heifers.
I love
and
that
they
word.
will be given to the King as a present by the dairy farmers of Jersey. But just as Queen Camilla bent down to stroke one of these cows, and they are very beautiful, they've got kind of big Disney eyes and beautiful golden fur, one cow did what cows sometimes do and jumped on the other one right in front of her.
Look, I'll be honest, I could get aroused just thinking about Jersey clotted cream. I don't know about you. Yeah.
That's a whole other programme,
Oh, my
Jo.
goodness, yeah.
And to be fair, she handled it really well. Because I was standing behind the cow, so I really did get a bird's eye view of this. And we kind of caught each other's eyes, and she just absolutely corpsed. Because, of course, everything is very scripted on these things, and they quite like it when things don't really go to plan. I don't think they quite, expected that, but she took it in her stride.
I love that animals just, they don't really recognise royalty, do they?
They do what they do.
They do what cows will do what cows do. But also on a more sombre, serious note, there was a security scare. What on earth?
I genuinely and honestly, I saw some scepticism online about this. I have never seen anything like this happen in 20 years of covering the royals. And in fact, I actually asked, some of the police officers there, and they said, we've only ever seen this done once. So basically, we were at that same Jersey Expo, and I was with the King at that point, and suddenly I saw a police officer come up to him and whisper something in his ear, and they just started walking really quickly. So past all the people that were waiting to be introduced to him, and of course everyone was looking a little bit puzzled, and you could instantly tell something was up. And then I kind of moved over, because to my right there was Queen Camilla, and she was just tucking into an ice cream that she'd been given, and I saw her protection officer go up to her and actually say to her, you have got to leave now.
Wow.
And you could see the Queen's face was a little bit like, oh, well, I'm just eating my ice cream, can I finish it? It was very nice ice cream. And I heard them say, credible threat now. So you could hear everything click into action, and she was rushed out, again, past the people waiting, to a nearby hotel that they were going to stay in anyway, but clearly that must have been the designated safe spot. And what it turns out is that there was some unidentified person on a roof, and obviously given everything that's just happened in America, they weren't taking any chances. And someone said to me later, it was a big call for the Jersey police to make, but they 100% did the right thing. And what the palace then said is they made a point of bringing everyone they'd been due to meet to the hotel to meet them, because obviously otherwise they'd missed out on their chance. I mean, it was momentaneous. They picked up the programme within a couple of minutes, but it was quite a stark reminder of actually the threats that these people face day in, day out, that we kind of take for granted.
Well, I'm glad everything was all right, goodness me. But Charlotte, another clip of the King saw him, well, some people assessed it as him looking a bit grumpy, and our viewers will be able to see that now. What were your thoughts on this?
I think it was less grumpy and more chivalrous because he's just trying to get his wife's coat on and he couldn't do it himself because he was holding an umbrella. But I mean, it was a slight snippy comment saying, help my wife with her coat.
I would have been more than snippy. Did you see how torrential that rain was?
Yeah.
I mean, you were in it.
I was in it, yeah. I think I sent you guys a photograph
Yeah.
of me looking absolutely, you could have wrung my dress out, it was so drenched.
Because it was so wet, I thought, God, I can't blame the man. What a horrible sort of moment. It's absolutely pouring with rain. And it's not as bad as Pen Gate. Do you remember Pen Ink Gate? That was a bit more of a longer outburst.
A few, if not days, even hours after his mother had died. But,
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all very forgivable. And this is a man who is 75 years old and is working his socks off in the pouring rain. I forgive him.
And going through cancer treatment, and actually, I was standing there in front of them, and actually they were laughing because what can you do? That the heavens have opened, and there's all these poor little children parading in front of them. So they were kind of smiling and cheering and clapping. So I didn't see him looking grumpy. If people thought it was, I think it was a rare moment in actually what was a great day.
But Richard, given the King's schedule, I think even most of us would have moments of feeling a little bit testy from time to time, wouldn't we?
Oh my goodness, can you imagine? I mean, he's been pretty much having a full programme, and then immediately after that he was on state opening of Parliament, and it's been non-stop really. So for someone who's been going through treatment, the whole last few weeks have been remarkable.
I feel like there's mischief afoot and trying to build a bit of a theme, because there was that clip of him looking annoyed at a page boy, or supposedly looking annoyed at a page boy at the state opening of Parliament.
Yes, this was because remember that the King and Queen Camilla have to wear very heavy robes, that genuinely heavy. So they're helped by the pages of honour who hold the robes at the back and everything. And there's a moment that we might be able to see where the King looked annoyed, his robes were getting tied up or something, and one of the pages was helping him. But I think it didn't seem to me that he was sort of telling the boy off. It was just, this silly robe or something.
Now, without making us all feel like we're in a year 8 politics lesson, but explain slightly the opening of state parliament and why the King might have felt a bit irked by some of the policies that he had to read out.
So his duty as a constitutional monarch is to present the programme for the new government. It's a new Labour government here, and he gives a long speech which he talks about my government, but obviously he hasn't written it. He's announcing their programme, and he has to read it out regardless of whether he agrees with these policies. There was one particular one that caught my eye and may have been a difficult one to read, which was the new government's plan is to abolish all the hereditary peers from the House of Lords. Now, 25 years ago, Tony Blair, previous Labour Prime Minister, wanted to get rid of all the hereditary peers, but he allowed 92 to remain, and now the plan is to get rid of them as well. And what emerged after Tony Blair was in government from his former communications chief, Alistair Campbell, was that Prince Charles then had expressed his disappointment at this move. He made the point that hereditary peers have a lot to offer. There's a lot of accumulated wisdom.
Are there any in particular who Charles might have affection for?
Well, there are lots of them who are his friends, but also it's that point that as a hereditary peer, just like he is a hereditary monarch, you're above party politics and you can bring a different impartial perspective to things. So, imagine it's a real blow against the hereditary principle. And Keir Starmer has described it as indefensible that they're still involved. So, is it defensible to have the hereditary monarch? It does put the King in an awkward position. Extremely
interesting. We'll have to watch this space on that one. Now, Rebecca, moving on to more leisurely things. William and George were a very cute double act, weren't they, at the game in Germany? Less said about the actual game, the better, but yeah.
Oh, they were right. You know, George was a right little mini-me, wasn't he? And there's a great set of pictures where you can see they were at the Euro finals in Berlin. Real treat for him to go with his dad. As you know, we've seen him taken to football on a few occasions now, and you know, great shots of them both kind of looking aghast together. You know, as a goal was scored against England, and I just thought, what special moments for them, and a great way, I think, to introduce George to some of the kind of glare of the cameras and the life that awaits him, but in a slightly fun and acceptable way.
I loved their triumphant hug when the goal was scored. It's like, that's the good side of football, isn't it? That you know, families can have those moments together.
Yeah, George is probably lucky he's not on the terraces, I think, where he might hear a slightly fruitier language than he probably would do in the royal box.
Oh, one day.
I was going to say, what gave it an extra edge was the King of Spain, Felipe, was there too, with his younger daughter, Sophia. So it was real, you know, the royal rivalry between the two families.
Well, the match wasn't the only times the princes have been twinning. Our friends on Mail Online have pulled together some pictures of the other times they've been unconsciously copying each other. Here they are at another football match, and this is them at the FA Cup final. Well, Charlotte, there were some, however, who were annoyed that William was at this event, but not at another rather significant event last year.
Yeah, so there was a bit of a controversy because last year he didn't go to the Australian women's football final of the World Cup. And I'm slightly on William's side about this, controversially. I am a feminist, and I do think women's football should be supported, but it was all the way in Australia.
That is no excuse.
Far
Charlotte
too far
Griffiths,
away.
It's lovely in Australia.
And it was August, and it was the summer holidays, and he was at home with his kids, and Australia's just too far away, Joe.
If you want to be Australia's king,
well,
it might be nice to turn up every now and again.
I'm sure he'll go to the next one. I'm sure he'll go on the next royal tour to Australia, although King Charles is actually going to Australia, isn't he?
Yeah.
But I'm sure in the future William will make a point of going there. But my other bugbear is that I think he should have gone to the women's Wimbledon final, which I'm sure we'll come on to later, because Kate, as patron of Wimbledon, had to go to the men's final. So it left the women's final the day before kind of exposed. I think they needed some royal presence there. So he could have gone to that to slightly make up for it and make his feminist sort of cause known.
Oh, what do you think about that, Richard? I mean, after much speculation, we did actually see Princess of Wales, Catherine, at Wimbledon, and she received a really rapturous reception, didn't she?
She really did. I mean, in William's case, he was preparing to go to Germany the next day with Prince George. For Catherine, it was a very moving moment, actually. There was a standing ovation for her. She came with Princess Charlotte and her sister Pippa, and you could tell, like, genuinely, I think, wasn't the only one who probably spotted a tear rolling down Catherine's cheek as she appreciated this gesture from everyone there. So it was a big moment for everyone and very touching to watch.
And can we just say, shallow moment for me, I loved her dress. I
It was
loved
so
that
good in that
purple
Wimbledon
dress.
purple. It
Absolutely
was just the colour of
beautiful.
Wimbledon.
And actually, she'd got it slightly adapted because the original one was V-neck, but she'd had it done in this kind of, you know, straight up there, and I thought it kind of suited her really well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, tell us, Rebecca, about the planning of this. What would have been the contingencies if it was it quite touch and go, do you think, up until the last minute?
Well, as I think we've talked about it on the programme a little bit, and I kind of hinted as strongly as I could that I was pretty sure that she was going to go, which was the kind of general sense of the direction of travel that I was getting. But of course, you know, as Kensington Palace was always stressing, when you're going through chemotherapy treatment, which she is, you know, sometimes you're just not going to know how you feel till you wake up on the day. Yeah. So they could, you know, never say never. But obviously they had got contingency plans for the Duchess of Gloucester, who's long been associated with Wimbledon and is a big fan. But of course, everyone really wanted to see Catherine. And like Richard said, I was actually very moved to see that standing ovation for her because it was so genuine and so heartfelt. And people just did it instantaneously. And I think they just wanted to show a little bit of solidarity with her as a woman in the public eye and what she's going through.
I think one of the only positive sides of her health crisis has just been, perhaps it's been a chance for her to appreciate how loved she is, actually.
Yeah.
But often you don't get that, do you, in sort of daily life. But I think that probably really brought it home to her.
It's amazing. What do you think now, Rebecca? Do you think she'll probably take the rest of summer now, take more time to just genuinely recover? No speculation about what she will and won't turn up to now.
No, that's it now
Yeah.
for both of them. Actually, they're both on summer holidays with their children. I think much needed, because there has been, you know, such difficult times for them this year. I think again what was lovely is her taking Princess Charlotte with her and seeing that lovely bond between her and her daughter, because this has been a huge strain on the children as well this year. You know, as she said herself in that first statement about the whole issue, was it was almost tougher to find a way to tell their children that Mummy was going through this difficult period as it was about getting the news herself. So how lovely that, you know, we could just see them there being so happy and knowing hopefully as a family they're coming through the other end of this.
I like Charlotte's sunglasses, by the way. They were very chic.
Yeah, they were
Ray-Bans.
Ray-Ban. They were very cool, actually. I think there was a bit of a run on them as well.
Oh, right. Yeah, I'm not
She
surprised.
is a style star in the making, for
100%,
sure.
yeah.
Speaking of style, Charlotte, and one pair of earrings that Catherine wore, and they're already sold out. She's such an influential figure. A lot of retailers, I imagine, missing the Kate effect.
Yeah, I mean, the Kate effect is so real. These earrings sold out. They were £400, so a lot of Kate's dresses are sort of out of the, you know, you can't really afford them basically. But £400, quite a lot for a pair of earrings, but, and, you know, you can kind of get to them if you wanted to. And that's what people did. They completely sold out. They're called the pariah earrings, which I thought was kind of ironic because you would expect Meghan to be wearing those.
Oh, that's harsh.
But, you know, they always do.
Charlotte said that, not me. Not me.
They do
No.
send a message often with their clothes, don't they? And I just thought, well, she's definitely not a pariah. She had this huge standing ovation, and they were fabulous earrings. They were very cool and modern, and they kind of went quite well with that very classic look with her purple dress.
Excellent. Well, we're going to stick with that topic for a moment as we get to the comment section, as apparently one of the most talked about topics of last week's programme, it wasn't the royal family or our special guest, Ailsa Andrew. Now you can check out last week's show for some of the really fascinating things she was saying, by the way. The big talking point seemed to be the shirt that I was wearing. Hopefully that should be on screen for you now. So I'm going to answer some of your burning questions. Yes, that hole was deliberate. It's called fashion. Look it up. It wasn't a tear. They weren't real diamonds. They were sadly just diamantes, because I ain't no royal princess. I can tell you, yes, where it's from. It's from a brand called Sandro, and we'll put a link in the description below. And obviously those of you who hated it can go and choose something else, just not wear it. It's fine, I like it, that's all that matters. Anyway, but after our discussion last week about the King opening more of the royal palaces to the public, we had this comment from Marcia Coe, who wrote, maybe he could open Royal Lodge. Now, Richard, I can't be the only one who thinks that that's quite a genius suggestion.
It's very appealing, isn't it? I think, to be honest, I would pay to see Prince Andrew's collection of teddies.
I was going to say just his face when he was told.
No, but come on, that's not going to happen. It's a private residence.
Why isn't it going to happen?
Well, he paid a lot of money. It's his private house. You know,
Whose
he didn't
money
want
is it?
People snooping around. That was his money. Yeah.
Where does he get his money?
That was from the sale of their previous house, which was a gift from Queen Elizabeth.
There you go.
So
there it is.
Don't expect Royal Lodge to be open to the public anytime soon.
Well, I do know that some of the staff in the real palace do watch this show. So to you, I say, just have a think on that. It's an idea. But let's move on to Marion Mann, who was moved to write after we discussed the online trolling that the Princess of Wales has been receiving just for attending Wimbledon. Marion writes, I'm so sick of people saying such horrible things about Princess Catherine. She's human, here. Ongoing chemotherapy is grueling. As long as she's still being treated, she will have days she feels sick. And meanwhile, DD wrote about Prince Harry being given the Pat Tillman Award last week. There are hundreds of thousands of US military men and women who deserve that award more than Harry. Please do keep those comments coming in. We love reading them, even the rude ones. But Richard, we won't say too much more about the Pat Tillman Award controversy, but there was a suggestion that Harry received a rather high-profile snub on the night.
This was really interesting. This was when he stood up to collect the award. They announced it. He stood up. Lots of others rose to their feet, including Meghan. She was clapping away. But one person who didn't stand up at all and didn't appear to be clapping either was the tennis legend Venus Williams.
What, the only one?
She stayed in her seat. She was surrounded by others, yes, who did get up, and she didn't appear to be clapping either. So it's very mysterious. I mean, we should make clear, so she was there because her sister Serena was presenting the award, so presumably she attended to support her sister. And it's Serena, generally, who's been thought to be a close friend of Meghan. So it does make you wonder what's going on there, and perhaps Venus shared the thoughts of lots of others who thought it wasn't appropriate that Prince Harry received this award.
Has she made any comment about it?
No,
Right.
nothing. I'm sure she wouldn't want to embarrass her sister.
Goodness me. Well, Charlotte, given the huge amount of, and it seems largely negative publicity about this award, Harry and Meghan, they have to be wondering whether or not these things are worth it, surely.
No, I think Harry is definitely wondering that because he hated every minute of getting on that stage.
How do you know that?
Because I've watched the video. He's a face of thunder, he's exhaling, he looks really miserable, and at one point he pulls away from Meghan, who's got his arm, and he just sort of like snatches his arm away, and he just seemed tense and like he wasn't enjoying it. And not for the first time has he looked a little bit apprehensive before going on stage. And I just wonder whether he really enjoys these things anymore. And of course there's the controversy. I mean, it's a PR disaster to have, you know, Pat Tillman's mum saying it's not a good idea for him to receive the award, and potentially to have Venus Williams not clapping right next to him. I just don't think they're worth it at all for them anymore.
And was it as we predicted that he really sort of like laboured that it was an award for Invictus?
Yeah, he definitely made that point, and he really wants to say he was accepting it on behalf of an amazing cause, which Invictus is, and he had people from Invictus around him, which is probably very wise. But then, even then, people said, oh, you only brought people from Invictus on to sort of deflect from yourself. So he can't really win.
Well, that's a bit tiresome.
Yeah, and whether you think that's very unfair or not, the point is, these aren't PR wins for the Sussexes. They just can't win. That must be incredibly frustrating for them, and they probably feel very hard done by. But the PR strategy going forward has got to be knock these things on the head.
And remember, what they could have done is they could have given the award to the Invictus Foundation, and then Harry could have let someone else from the organisation collect the award, couldn't he? So, rather than
possibly
say, oh, it's
not
not
as much publicity in that.
No, but rather than say, oh, it's not all about me, he could have shown that by letting someone else collect it.
Well, Rebecca, there's more mischief regarding Harry in the Mail's Ephraim Hardcastle, who points out where it points out that 18 months after the release of Harry's book Spare, there's still no sign of the paperback edition, which is unusual in publishing, isn't it?
Yes, and I think this is really intriguing. So intriguing, I got in touch with Penguin Random House this week to ask them what their plans were, and I got a message back to say, we've got no announcements to make at the moment, but we'll keep you in the loop. So I went back to them and said, yes, but have you confirmed that you are going to do a paperback? And the message came back going, no, we haven't.
Right.
So I wonder if there is something in this, and I'm wondering whether he's realised, look, this has made me a significant amount of money, so tick for me, but he's realised there has been a massive personal backlash to him from people who found the way he had dumped a bucket on his family in the worst possible way as pretty reprehensible. It does make me wonder whether he will plan to bring another one out. Because I was going to say, Jo, so if he does, he surely would have to include an updated chapter like these paperbacks do, and maybe he's just realised it's not worth it for him to go that way.
It's quite common, is it not, though, for it not really to be in the author's hands at all, as whether the book publisher decides they want a paperback or not.
I'll be honest, Jo, I don't know enough about publishing to know about that, but I thought it was very interesting the way that Penguin Random House were being slightly vague about this and not wanting to commit either way. It does make me wonder if something's going on behind the scenes.
I would have thought, being a business, they do want a paperback version, because of course they're in one business and one business only, it's to sell a lot of books, so they'll be desperate for a paperback, I would have thought.
And they were crowing about this book when they had it as a property, and of course it did go on to be a massive bestseller, but I would argue a lot of those readers were rubberneckers, people who wanted to just know what he had to say, but at the end of the book felt slightly uncomfortable by it.
If I am right, and I don't know, if I am right that it's a publishing decision, then Harry would just have to go along with it, right?
Yeah, no, surely.
If he had to write another chapter, you see, he could probably choose not to write another chapter, and then you know, paper books do need that first chapter, I think, to refresh it and bring it up to date.
I mean, Harry knows how much damage he's done, and you know, I think we've seen him trying to mend fences with his family, all the business about ringing his father on his birthday and then rushing over to London after the cancer diagnosis. So, you know, I really do imagine that he wouldn't want to do that all over again.
I think that's, sorry, Joe, I was going to say, I think actually that's a really, really good point, that we have seen both the King and the Princesses of Wales's cancer diagnosis since that book came out. And both of them, you know, got some pretty negative coverage in his book. He didn't have good things to say about either of them. And I think maybe even someone as dense as Harry, when it comes to his family, realises that would not be a good look.
Do you think, Charlotte, that he does genuinely have any regret on the way the book was received?
I think, yeah, I don't think he regrets writing it. I know he found the process incredibly cathartic, and I don't think he regrets that. But yes, of course he'll regret how it was received, but the blame won't be on himself, because I just don't think he has that self-awareness. He'll be furious with all of us, with everybody else, for not reacting in the way that he wanted. But, you know, what did he expect, honestly? I think he thought he had every right to share his views, tell his side of the story. But, you know, he just can't bear the way that people reacted to it.
Well, Richard, we have a busy week of royal and royal adjacent birthdays. One of them is Thomas Markle, interestingly, who turns 80, and you've written about that in your royal newsletter. Yes,
happy birthday to Mr. Markle. He has the landmark birthday. He turns 80 today, and he has said that he's not expecting to hear from his daughter Meghan. And I've just written about the sad situation and how it's one of those things that Harry and Meghan would have to address if they want to mend fences with the royal family. And I make the point that Queen Elizabeth knew this. You know, she was the one who urged Meghan to write to her father, to try to appeal to him and try to heal that rift. Because what people are suggesting is that the Queen sensed how significant it was and had an inkling, really, of problems to come.
And, well, on a happier note, Rebecca Camilla also celebrated her birthday this week, I believe Wednesday, 77.
Yes, yes, yeah.
How will she have celebrated? And you've written a special piece about her, haven't you?
I have. So she celebrated her 77th birthday working, which seems to be a familiar theme.
In very heavy clothes.
She was accompanying her husband to the state opening of Parliament, and actually I asked her about it when we were on Guernsey, one of the Channel Islands. She said, "Oh yeah, well, you know, you just got to get on with it." And I did a kind of big insight piece for Mail Plus and the Daily Mail this week, because I wanted to kind of emphasise what this year has been like for her, because of course, you know, cancer is incredible. You know, it's incredibly difficult for the person who's going through it, obviously, but it's also difficult for their families and their partners and their spouses. And I was told by very good sources that at the beginning of this year, they've never seen her so worried. Not because I think the King's prognosis was bad, but because it's such, you know, her world was blown up in one fell swoop, knowing that the man that she's loved for so many years of her life was going to be facing the biggest fight of his. But it's interesting, after a very brief wobble, really what kicked in is this kind of eternal optimism she has. And she started kind of signing her letters onwards and upwards with an exclamation mark. And it was like, okay, right, we are just going to get on with this. And, you know, I've kind of reveal some of the ways that she's decompressed. I mean, it might surprise people to know that she's a real fan of wild swimming. And she loves to get out in the ocean. And a couple of years ago, she was going to go swimming in Cornwall, and they were warned, "Oh, Mum, there's a, you know, huge kind of group of jellyfish out there. A smack of jellyfish, I think they call it, is the term." And she went, "Oh, yeah, stuff that, I'm going out anyway." And she loves it. And in fact, actually, when we were in Guernsey, we were looking out over the sea, and she said, "Oh, I'd just love to plunge in there, I would." So I knew actually what I was writing was true, that she, you know, I just wanted to give a bit of an insight into, you know, her and the way she kind of, you know, what her life is like away from behind the scenes.
Nice. All those Cornwall waters are brisk, though. I'd need a nice wetsuit on for that.
She doesn't, though. Apparently, she's always in a cosy. You know, she's tough.
That's why Charles loves her, though. She's such an outdoorsy,
she's hardy,
tough old bird.
Yeah. Oh, listen to that sound. Do you know what that means? It's time for the Princess Anne section of the show. Finally, we got our way. Finally, hands up all round. Now, Richard, Rebecca teased about this last week, but on the previous show, but Princess Anne is already back out on engagements. It just beggars belief, I think.
Yes, I mean, this was very significant. This was her first engagement since being injured and her spell in hospital. She was wearing a dark hat, and she's clearly been in the wars. You could see under her left eye there was still a lot of bruising, so she is still recovering after that incident, but she was obviously determined to be there. It was a prize ceremony for a charity she's very much involved in, which is Riding for the Disabled, and she talked about how she still has no recollection of the incident that led to these injuries, but hopefully we will be seeing more of her over the next few weeks, but they're clearly going to stage things carefully, and she won't be fulfilling all the engagements that had been scheduled for her.
And we did see, didn't we, Charlotte, a touching tribute from William and Catherine?
Yeah, so William and Catherine said, well done, you're a super trooper, and well done getting back to work so quickly on social media. And it made me think, God, this is probably what the royal family WhatsApp group is like. It was so casual and,
very true,
and affectionate. It was so nice to see that. And also a bit of self-awareness from, you know, well, from Kate and William, who before Kate was ill, you know, Anne did outshine them on the events all the time. And sometimes that used to be highlighted. People would say, gosh, William, do more events because Anne's doing all the events. But obviously no hard feelings there. And and that also, of course, quite poignant because Catherine herself is getting back to work slowly but surely.
Excellent. Well, the other royal birthday coming up is that of Prince George, who is about to turn 11. Can you believe it? Well, to mark the occasion, here are some of our favourite pictures of the future king. How cute was that? Wishing Prince George a very happy birthday for next week from all of us here at Palace Confidential. And a reminder again, if you don't subscribe to our channel, please do. Help us get towards that 300,000 mark. Go on, go on, go on. My thanks to Rebecca, Charlotte, Richard, and to you for watching as always. See you next week. Bye-bye.